Every year, 45 million tons of powdered milk are produced worldwide. Brazil is the fourth largest producer, with an annual production of 1.5 million tons. But do you know how this product is made? Watch this video to see all the stages of powdered milk production, from raw material collection to final packaging. The basic raw material for powdered milk production is obviously fresh milk. This fresh milk comes from dairy cows raised on specialized farms. Each cow produces an average of 30 liters of milk per day. Some high-yielding cows produce up to 50 liters daily. To maximize milk production, the cows are milked mechanically twice a day, usually early in the morning and in the afternoon. The milk is milked directly into a large cooling tank. Immediately after milking, the milk needs to be cooled rapidly to a temperature of 4 degrees Celsius. This rapid cooling is important to ensure quality of milk, preventing the proliferation of harmful bacteria. The faster the milk is cooled, the longer its shelf life. Modern dairy farms have refrigeration tanks with a capacity for thousands of liters of milk. After refrigeration on dairy farms, the milk needs to be transported to factories that will process it and convert it into powdered milk. For this, specialized milk transport tanker trucks are used. These trucks have enormous stainless steel tanks with thermal insulation capable of keeping the milk refrigerated between 2 and 4 degrees throughout the journey. Each tank has the capacity to transport about 25,000 L of milk. The drivers are trained specifically to operate these vehicles and ensure the integrity of the cargo. The trucks travel from the farms to the factories right after the morning milking, covering hundreds of kilometers. Upon arriving at the processing plant, the milk undergoes a battery of tests. Quality checks are performed before the milk is pumped into storage tanks. Aspects such as acidity, temperature, and fat content are verified, and possible countermeasures are taken. After passing the quality tests, the milk is pumped into enormous refrigeration tanks in the factory, where it awaits the start of processing. These tanks have an individual capacity to store an impressive 60,000 liters of milk each. They are connected to powerful refrigerators that keep the milk always at the ideal temperature. Raw milk can be stored refrigerated for several days in these tanks before being processed. Each factory has dozens of these tanks to store large quantities of milk. When it's time to start production, computer-controlled robots come into action. They precisely pump the stored milk between the different refrigeration tanks, transferring the raw milk to the start of processing. Before being processed and converted into powder, the milk needs to go through a step called standardization. This means that the fat content and other nutrients are checked. Raw milk needs to be adjusted to meet the specifications of the desired final product. For example, to obtain skimmed milk powder, it is necessary to remove a large part of the fat from the raw milk. Whole milk powder requires all the natural fat of the milk. Semi-skimmed milk powder is at an intermediate point. This standardization is done by separating the cream from the milk and adding new cream as needed. Other nutrients, such as proteins and carbohydrates, can also be standardized at this stage. Therefore, the same factory can produce several types of milk powder from the same raw milk, simply adjusting its composition at this standardization stage. This gives enormous flexibility to meet consumer market demands for different types of milk powder. Before being converted into powder, the already standardized milk undergoes a critical sanitization process to eliminate any potentially dangerous microorganisms. For this, the milk is rapidly heated to temperatures between 702 and 85 degrees Celsius for a few seconds in equipment called heat exchangers. This instant heating eliminates bacteria and other unwanted microorganisms without cooking the milk. This process is called pasteurization and is mandatory for any milk that will be consumed outside the dairy farm. In addition to eliminating harmful agents, pasteurization extends the shelf life of the milk. Afterward, the milk is immediately cooled back to the ideal processing temperature. Throughout this stage, impressive heat exchangers capable of heating and cooling thousands of liters of milk per hour take place. After being sanitized, the milk passes through powerful centrifuges that separate the milk components by density. These machines make the milk spin at high speed, forcing the separation of the heavier and lighter parts. The cream, which contains most of the milk fat, is the lightest part. It migrates to the center of the centrifuge drum and is separated. Cream is many. Sometimes used for butter production, skim milk, now with much less fat, moves on to the next stages of milk powder manufacturing. Some factories also take advantage of the protein separated in centrifugation to produce whey powder. The skim milk, resulting from centrifugation, then goes through a process called evaporation. In this stage, the milk is slowly heated in heat exchangers to a temperature between 40 and 45 degrees. This controlled heating causes some of the water in the milk to evaporate, thus concentrating the solids, proteins, lactose, vitamins, and minerals. The milk can lose up to half of its initial volume during evaporation. Concentrating the solids before drying promotes greater efficiency and quality in this critical process. The more solids the milk contains at this stage, the faster and more complete the moisture removal process will be. Then we arrive at the most impressive stage of all, the drying of the milk, which converts it from liquid to a soluble powder. This occurs in equipment called spray dryers. Concentrated milk from evaporation is pumped into these machines and immediately sprayed under pressure into tiny droplets. This milk spray is instantly dried upon contact with the superheated air inside the chamber. The air inside the spray dryer reaches extremely high temperatures, reaching 200 degrees Celsius. However, the sprayed milk does not come into direct contact with the hot surfaces, preventing cooking. The drying occurs only through the heat of the air. In a matter of seconds, the droplets of liquid milk lose almost all their moisture and turn into a very fine powder. This spray drying occurs continuously, transforming thousands of liters of milk into a powder. The freshly dried milk powder then passes through vibrating sieves that separate and classify the tiny granules of powder by size. These sieves have progressively finer meshes, ensuring particles of uniform size in the final product. To standardize the size, sieving removes any clumps and granules that are too fine or too coarse. The result is a powder with perfect granulation to dissolve easily in liquids. Before being packaged and distributed, the milk undergoes rigorous quality tests to ensure that the final product is perfect. Samples are collected every 30 minutes on the production line. In the factory laboratories, the milk powder has its moisture checked. The entire process aims to remove water from the milk. Therefore, there can be no traces of moisture. The color of the powder is also analyzed to detect variations. In addition, solubility is tested by mixing the powder in water to check if it dissolves completely. Precise analyses of fat, protein, carbohydrate, and nutrient content are also performed. After passing all the tests, the milk powder is finally ready to be bottled and packaged. It descends through ducts that lead it to the automatic fillers. These machines supply the milk in previously sterilized packaging, such as bags, cans, or plastic containers. All undergo rigorous sanitization before being filled. Once full, the packaging is immediately sealed and hermetically sealed to guarantee the aroma, flavor, and nutritional quality of the milk remain intact. Then, the filled primary packaging goes to equipment that performs the labeling and secondary packaging. The labels contain all the nutritional information, manufacturing date and expiration date. Finally, the ready-made packaging is boxed and palletized, ready to be distributed to retailers and consumers. And that was today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel.